Hello, I'm Magna, and today I'm just going to be going through basic counters to Protoss units. Um, not much else to say other than that. So, I'm going to skip probes because they're workers, and they don't really count. But with Zealots, the main counters for each race is Colossus do very well, Roaches do well, and Hellion Hellbats are the main counters. They won't be the only things that are effective against them. Like, you can kite with Stalkers, you can kite with Marines, siege tanks destroy them, if you can... air units, obviously. Roach Hydra, Swarm Host, Ultralisk. There's quite a few things, but these are the main ones that will most commonly be seen. Next is Sentry, and just A-moving with Sentries is not recommended at all because they are meant to be an energy unit. But the units that do well against them are Hydralisks do well, Stalkers do well. Almost every unit does pretty well against just sentries because they are not supposed to be used by themselves. They're more of a support unit that can force field, guardian shield, and make hallucinations. They're pretty good support units. Not so good for just fighting though because of their low damage and low health. Stalkers, they're okay for they're pretty expensive for their cost. They do fairly well against... They're one of... man. They do pretty well against air units, except for anti-armor air units. Like, Void Rays, I find they don't do very well. It says they're strong against them. I do not agree. But, you can try it out for yourself. I don't think they do well against Void Rays at all. But, yeah. They do, Marauders counter them because they do well, they do more damage to armored, which Stalkers are armored, right here. Zerglings do well because Stalkers do not do that much damage, and the Zerglings are decent units and can just swarm them. Immortals also just destroy them because, as you see here, they do 50 damage to Stalkers, which is quite a bit. So, yeah. Immortals. Awesome unit against armored. Moving on to Dark Templar, which basically doesn't beat any unit at all if there's detection. If there is no detection, they do pretty well. That's basically all it is. You can't really have an accurate strong against weak against for them because of this trait. Like, great, they're strong against workers. Everything's strong against workers. Oh, they're weak against overseers. Well, if you're going to mass overseer against Dark Templar, the overseers can't attack, and that's not going to kill the Dark Templars. So, you know, it's... You know. It's, you got the idea that if you have detection, does well, unless you're attacking with workers. If you're attacking DTs with workers, you're probably already dead. Moving on to High Templar. Once again, they're an energy unit, so, you know, Storms do well against these units. They do well against other units, like I do think they do well against Ghosts, even though it says they don't. Because EMP does get rid of their energy, and Snipe does kill them, but then also Feedback kills the Ghost. So it's kind of a micro battle, I find. More than this is better than the other. It's whoever can micro it better is what I think would win between those two. So I've beaten lots of Ghosts with High Templar just by feedbacking them. Just explode. It's awesome. Don't do that well against Roaches because of their high health pool. They have 145 health, which takes quite a few storms to hurt them, and it's not really worth it. They're weak against Colossus. I don't think I have to explain that. They're a huge unit with huge health you're probably only going to even hit one with the storm. Like, it's really not worth it at all. Like, any big unit, like Tempest, Mothership, Carrier, Brood Lords, well, like, the air units, unless they really, really stack up, is really not very good. Siege Tanks, no. Thors, no. Ultras, no. Brood Lords, unless they're really comp up, no. Corruptors, no. Things like that. Archons. We've got Archons, which the only strong against is Mutalisks, which it depends how you use the Mutalisks. Yeah. But, off topic. On to how to beat Archons. They don't do very well against big units like this. Mortals, I find it's an even fight. So, I don't know about that. They do well against small units and light units, zealots, biological things, for sure. They do more to biological. They don't do very well to, like, Colossus or things like that, but Colossus don't do very well to them either. So I think the main units to kill Archons with is if you have Carriers or Void Rays. Mortals do alright. Stalkers do well against them. Any one of those. You can have Thor's Ultras, for sure, they do pretty well. You can also have Marauders do pretty well with their health. Siege Tanks do well. Battle Cruisers do well. For Zerg, we've got Roaches do well. Hydras do well if they are behind Roaches. If they are taking the hits, not so much because of their low health pool. Brood Lords do well because they're good against all ground units. Who are we kidding? So yeah, there's the Archon. Quite a few things. War Prism, I don't think I need to say counters to War Prisms because you just see it coming. That's watching your base thing. Observers, they're scouts. If you have detection, kill them. Great. Mortals. Immortals do very, very well against armored units and not so much against non-armored units. So just grab a non-armored unit, such as the very first units you get, and just mass those against Immortals. That's about it. Colossus are basically the opposite of Immortals. And they can also get hit by air. They do well against lots of little units because they're line damage and high just damage in general. But they're armored, so they get destroyed by anti-armor things. Marauders do pretty well, obviously air units, right? Thors do well, Immortals do well. We've got Siege Tanks do well. Obviously air units, but for Zerg we've got Ultras do well. Roaches do alright. Hydras are okay if they're behind, but it's mainly you want to have some air units to deal with them. Phoenix. Any ground unit, basically, because chances are they can't pick up all of them. And then big things. Armored air units. Yeah. There's quite a bit to counter Phoenix. Chances are nobody's massing Phoenix, though. Void Rays. I find the Void Rays are really strong. Like, scary strong. They obviously do well against armored units, and so, like, Battle Cruisers, Corruptors, Tempests, so you don't want to make those. To counter them, if you have good micro with your Vikings, you can kite them around and kill them. Mutalisks do pretty well. And Phoenix do alright. I think the main thing, if you have Archons, they do pretty well. I don't think Stalkers do. I know it says they do. I don't agree with that. I think Viking Micro, whole bunch of Marines would be Terran's best option. Mutalisks do well. Hydras don't beat them because they're low health. Mutalisks, it's kind of it, in my opinion. Yeah. Hydras in low numbers against them are good, but once there's a lot of them, the Void Rays can stack up so that they can all shoot, while the Hydras cannot, and that's a problem for the Hydras. Phoenix, it's armored. Phoenix don't do much damage to armored, so I say it's a pretty even fight. It's pretty even. Best choice, I think, is Archons, because chances are the Void Rays are going to clump up, and the Archon's splash damage will destroy them. Oracles, more of a harassment unit, so basically any unit that can hit air, that'll just stop your workers from dying. Tempest, just don't make massive air units, and everything else beats it. I know they look fancy and awesome and have huge, like, lightning spheres, but they really don't do that much to anything other than massive air. Carriers, another unit that I do not think is that great. It's pretty good against light air units. They alright to Thors. Not as much now. Thors have their what's it called? They've got that other high impact payload. Battlecruiser Yamato does pretty well. Vikings do well. Marines, stimmed Marines destroy the interceptors. It's pretty good. Hydras do well. Corruptors do well. That's about that. And then for here, I'd say Void Rays or Stalkers are probably your best choices. Interceptor, naughty unit. I don't think I have to cover it. Mothership Core, it's might harass. It's probably not. Anything. Anything other than things that can't hit air. About it. Mothership. Keep detection. It doesn't do very much damage. It has a lot of health and cloaks things. Get detection and you'll be fine. And that concludes the Protoss units. Hope you learned something. The biggest way that I've found how to just remember the counters, because it's a hard thing to remember, there's a lot to know, is just play a lot of games. If you play a lot of melee games, you'll get attuned to it, and you'll just know. And yeah, that's how I figured out all this, and I just remember most of them now. And then you'll realize that there's hard counters, soft counters. There's a lot to this game, a lot to this beautiful game. So yeah, hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. I am Megna, and just keep getting smarter.